coming to the rally for 26 years. And out of those 26 years, I've been the police chaplain for the last 15 years. And working with law enforcement for 20, actually, across the U.S. Before I get rolling, I think I forgot to tell the guys in the back that I'll be preaching on New King James. And the text will be Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37, the Samaritan. So before we get rolling on that, I got a table set up like I usually do when I'm here, with CDs and DVDs, my latest newsletter, and an updated biography, so help yourself to all that. One of the CDs that's out there, and I think I may have had it here last year, is my dad's personal testimony. My dad went home to be with the Lord 7 years ago, and this was one of the outreaches here at Sturgis that he used to come help me with. Yeah, him and my mom, and anyway, it was awesome to see what God did in my parents' life after they got saved. I was already in college when they got saved and doing my own thing, but watching their life unfold in the ministry and their commitment to the Lord had a profound effect on myself. And so when God called me to the ministry and I left my career and served full-time back in spring of '93, it's one of those things where I told the Lord, here I am, send me, just because I saw the faithfulness of God in my parents' life. So his testimony is actually out there on a CD, just to the right of my testimony. All the CDs are on the left, DVDs on the right, and marked as well. So help yourself to that. That's what those things are out there for. Since I was here last year, a lot has changed. A lot has happened. In fact, I'll tell you, this is going to be my last year coming to Sturgis. I just have so much going on in Texas, ministry-wise. I've been not only my police chaplain, but I'm also our fire rescue chaplain. Joined our fire department since I was here last year, went off to firefighting school, and came back, and after my spring break outreach, spent 4 months becoming an EMT. And just July 2nd, this is 1 month ago today, I passed my national registry. So now I'm a nationally certified EMT and a state licensed EMT from Texas. And so both are volunteer departments. And I've had a lot of people ask me, well, do you think you'll make a career out of it? There's places you can go and they'll pay you, to do this. It's like, it's not about the money, it's about the people in my community. I've always been focused on relationships. I've always been focused on winning people to the Lord. And I've always been focused on discipling people. And this is just kind of solidifies my platform as a first responders chaplain, working with law enforcement, fire department, and EMS, because I am one of them. So it gives me a great voice when I share with them. We go on calls together, good and bad calls, but I get a chance to share with them. I'm going to continue to do all the evangelistic outreaches down in Texas. We do college spring break in Texas. We do our law enforcement hunting retreats and different things. So I'm still focused on reaching a lot of people with evangelism. But we're in the middle of a building project, and with that building project, it's our new, what I call Gospel Track Print Shop and Media Center. So we're going to continue to design, publish, print, and distribute gospel tracts. And it's right around 3.4 million since 1993 that we have done. And I just have run out of room over the last number of years where I live, where I can dedicate the space to just doing the gospel tract ministry. Well, it's also time to kind of get caught up with the current media stuff as far as YouTube channels and so forth, and being on social media and podcasting. I've wanted to focus on 2 different areas. One, evangelism, because I'm still going to continue to train up the church in evangelism. And the second, I'm ministering to first responders. And so just to give an outlet for a lot of them, because a lot of them are going through such stressful times right now. I've seen seasoned law enforcement officers retire early. I've seen a lot of guys that have gone into law enforcement now seeking other jobs just because of stuff that's going on. And these are men and women who have a sincere heart to serve their fellow community citizens. And, it's why they get into you cannot be a first responder and not love people or have a care for people. And yet to see that thrown back in your face, with wanting to have a portion of our population wanting to defund the police and just make it so hard for people to do their jobs. You know, they need a voice, they need an outlet. And so my chaplaincy down there is more important than me doing all the traveling that I've done for 27 years. I've traveled in the ministry. And the last number of years, with Corey being at home and Timothy now having a family of his own and being married and whatnot, you know, and I'm hoping to be a grandfather soon because they're talking about having children, you know, and they only live 6 miles from us. I want to be home. I don't want to be 2 months at a time going on the road, you know, ministering in all the places. And this year has been kind of weird just with all the COVID stuff because I preach in so many jails and prisons and drug rehabs and detention centers and boys' homes and boys' ranches and different things. And I haven't been able to because of COVID. You know, they're just not letting visitors in. And so it's just been a different year. But that being said, I just kind of preface that with some pictures I want to show you that since last year. The very first one, if we've got them ready to go, which I know I had seen the first one up there. That's when we poured the foundation for the print shop. The footprint on that is 30 by 24. And go on to the next one. And that's when we started framing. We started doing framework at the end of October. So about 8 months ago, I guess that is, or so. Go on. 9 months ago. That's just the first walls going up. Go on. Okay, we got the downstairs frame. Go on. Okay, now we're starting to sheathe it, and the upstairs being framed. Go on. And so it's a 2-story building. Downstairs are 10-foot walls plus the 2-foot for the engineered trusses. So from downstairs to looking up to where the floor on the second floor would be is over 12 feet because it's also on a 6-inch curb around there. So plenty of height in there. The top is 8 foot with a 412 pitch, and so we're finishing up the roof there. Go on. So that's the building the way it stands. It's got that funky door upstairs in the middle. That's going to be right in the center of where our big 7-foot patio door, French doors are going to be, leading out onto a big deck. The right slab on the ground there is where our exterior staircase will go from front to back up onto a platform that'll give us access. We decided to go 2 stories kind of mid-project because we figured we already got a roof, already got concrete, you know, paid for. This, you know, cost per square foot, let's just go up. You know, give us more space. Because at some point, I'd like to get the school up and running again, but we're not going to do 4 years. You know, when I had a commitment to 4 years per student to train them up, that was just it's a huge commitment with everything else going on. I think I can impart into a lot of kids out of high school for a 1-year commitment to get a lot accomplished in that time frame. And so that's the reason we wanted to have more livable space upstairs, and we still got our school building that's on property and so forth. So those are things that have been going on. So what's the next picture? Go on after that. Well, there's a picture of Corey on the left and my mom on the right. A lot of you haven't seen them in a while. It's been 2010 since Corey and Timothy traveled with me. So it's been 10 years. She looks younger every year. I always embarrass her. I always tell her, "You look as young as you did when I married you," and she goes, "Oh, come on, get off," you know. And I'm the one that keeps getting old. She doesn't. Go on. Finally got her to start shooting guns. Figure we lived in Texas for 25 years. It's about time she gets comfortable with them because, you know, my son and I love target practicing. So thinking, well, you know, if I were to ask her, "Can I buy you a gun?" she'd say no. So it's like, Timothy, Mother's Day's coming earlier this spring. I says, why don't we go in and get her a gun? She can't say no then. And so for Mother's Day, we got her a pistol and took her out target practicing. She actually did pretty good. Next picture. She's kind of actually bragging about all center mass shots that she's got there. So, because when I'm going, I want her to be able to take care of herself should anything ever happen. Go on. That's my new helmet for the fire department. My shield actually says not just firefighter, but chaplain as well. Go on. That's us at the firefighting school down at the Teats firefighting school, which is part of Texas A&M University down College Station. And that particular day, we've been certified in our SCBA, which is our self-contained breathing apparatus. So that's the air tank and regulator and mask. And when we go into burning buildings, you know, that's the stuff we have to know how to wear and use. And go on. Now my son, that's my son to my right, your left, Timothy. And a lot of you remember Timothy when he was running around here 4, 5, 6 years old with a cowboy hat and boots, and we were parked out in back with a motorhome. And
You know, he's all grown up, and both he and his wife Andrea are on the fire department the next town over. And so what's really cool is we'll get called to car wrecks or fires and stuff, and we work a lot of the same incidents together. And it's pretty cool. That day we were on a big ranch, and it was just a huge fire. I think we had 8 companies working all day on that one, but we got it under control. Next one. That's me with our fire rescue truck. Here's our picture of Mom and Corey just last month when we were in Tennessee for a family wedding. Go on. That's something that's one of the accomplishments. You know, that's my national registry, my certification for being an EMT. Go on. Spring break this year, crazy busy, as it always is. You know, tens of thousands of college kids that I minister to. COVID hit right at the end of spring break. In fact, what was pretty crazy about all this was a year ago, even when I was here, if you would ask me about becoming an EMT, I never thought about being an EMT. You know, I was considering being a firefighter because I knew that both our departments, which are volunteer departments, are always looking for help. I live in a community of about 300 people. The young ones, they grow up, they go to college and move away. You know, so the ages of people serving are getting older, and it's like, you know what, that's something I can do when I'm home between outreaches. And I told them, listen, I'm gone a lot, but when I'm home, when a tone drops, I can be there. I live so close to the station, you know, it's no problem. And so, but on spring break, yeah, a lot of kids got saved. It's just an awesome, I do a lot of spring break outreach, in fact, 27 years in a row. Go on. That was here a couple years ago in Sturgis. One of my favorite pictures, just serving our local police officers here. I told Chief Vandewater just earlier this last week when I hit town, we had a heart-to-heart with him, told him that I'm retiring from being their chaplain, so it gives them a year to look for someone else. And he goes, sure, bug out after 15. Most people put in 20, you know. He was just kidding me, you know. But yeah, I'm going to miss a lot of these guys. Go on. That one was taken last year in the Rapid City Journal, put that in as I was out there. This year, again, I'll be in a yellow chaplain shirt, so you'll be able to spot me pretty good if I don't have that cross on my shoulder. Of course, there's me with a lot of the help fighters in front of Bob and Sharon's house, actually. Go on. And that's just another cool view of walking down Main Street. Somebody sent me that JPEG, and I thought, wow, that turned out really nice. That's my son and his wife, Andrea, just battling a fire, another fire call we were on. I just happened to show up. They were working together, putting out some spot fires on this ranch, and it's like, oh, what a great picture. Go on. Well, that's me as an EMT student earlier this spring. Go on. Unless that was it. Is that it? Okay, you can just turn it off then. 27 years ago when the Lord called me to the ministry, you know, my heart's cry was really, here I am, Lord, send me. Which comes out of Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8, you know, where the question is posed, who will go for us? Whom can we send? And the reply is, here I am, send me. You know, that's still my heart's cry. When I see a need, you know, it's like, Lord, here I am, I can take care of that. And, you know, if you want me to do that, I'll go do that. Because I've learned that if the Lord puts something on your heart to go and do, is that he wants you to do it, you know, and so often, I go all the way back to the writings of Moses. I look in Exodus, you know, here, you know, when early on in Exodus, Moses is being called by God to lead the children of Israel out of captivity, and you know, he's got every excuse. Well, I'm not eloquent of speech, and who's going to take me serious, and you know, and God just asks him a question, says, what's that in your hand? You know, God's only going to use what you have. You know, he's not concerned about all that you're going to need, because he'll provide all the need as you go. I've learned that a long time ago when he called me to the ministry. You know, there were plenty of times my wife and I had need. We had 4 different motorhomes in total. Well, 3 motorhomes and a 5th wheel, but the 5th wheel never went out on the road for ministry. We used that for school stuff. But out of traveling in motorhomes from Fairbanks, Alaska to Mexico City, all 49 states. Hawaii, we went 4 times, but we flew over there each time. But everywhere else where we could go by motorhome and evangelize, we did. You know, over 1,800 cities in North America I've evangelized with the cross, living out of a motorhome. And there's been many times we've had transmissions go, wheel bearings go, whatever, and you're just stuck. You know, so it seems. So I was like, okay, minister to those in front of you, who's ever around you. while God, in the meantime, works out all the details to bring the provision to get you going on the road again. And we've seen that time and again. I mean, it was only 2 years ago when the Suburban out there, the engine went on that. You know, I was in Wisconsin at the time when it went, and it's $9,000. Well, I wanted to be $9,400 total, but I told the Lord I need $8,100 because that's what I was quoted by the Chevy to put a different motor in and Cadillac converters, and within 24 hours, $9,000 came in. So after my tithe of $900, I had the $8,100. You know, while I was at it, I told him to do a few other things. So, but you know, I remember the days when Corey and I would be out of gas, out of water. You know, just saying, Lord, we need $5 for a loaf of bread and some peanut butter, and someone would knock on the door and hand us $5. You know, so we've been there in all those situations too. You know, but now I don't sweat anything. It's like on my way up here, my radiator went in Oklahoma. It wasn't a planned thing. $800 later, you know, I'm in the next day and an extra day in a hotel, and then I'm on my way. You know, but I just feel, I always have peace through all that. I just say, it is what it is. Back in the day, I'd freak out over everything, you know, and it's just like, no, it's like, it's in God's hands, God's timing, you know. And so, but when he calls you to do something, you know, so often I always would have the thought, like Moses, you know, who'd take me serious? Or Lord, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm not equipped, you know. But you know, he equips the call is what he does, and God gets the glory for it. And I've seen that time and again. Again, you know, just telling the Lord, here I am, send me. There was a time in my life, in fact, I'm reminded of when I was 4 years old. I watched the lunar landing. So if you know when that happened, and you're good at math, you can figure out how old I am. I'll just tell you, I'm 55 years old. But, you know, when the lunar landing happened, my mom, my dad, and I watched the lunar landing on a black and white TV that had 3 channels, all fuzzy, grainy, black and white. It was no bigger than the size of a laptop. However, when I was a child, man, I thought that was so awesome. I wanted to be an astronaut. But if you would ask me by age 5 what I wanted to be a police officer, a fireman, an EMT, an astronaut. Yeah, some of your grandchildren, they'll give you the same thing, you know. The venture, lights and sirens, you know. So after being a police chaplain for all the years I have been, just last year at the age of 54, I became a fireman, and this year at 55 I became an EMT. I'm still waiting for NASA to call. You know, most people will say, well, you know, you're beyond their age limit. You know, it's like, so what? I can get a waiver, I'm sure. You know, if God wants me to do it, he'll work out the details. Be neat to be an astronaut, I guess. But I say all that to say this. Every time God's opened up a door for me to minister to a certain people group, I've done it. In fact, in our sanctuary here this morning is Brandon Besham, good friend. And Brandon's the one that was responsible, that God used for me to go into the police department here 15 years ago to become the chaplain of the rally. And, you know, it's been an awesome adventure because there's ups and downs. I mean, I remember having to do a funeral service for one of our guys. But not only the bad times, but the good times where I've prayed for a number of my officers for healing for different things, and they received instant healing. I prayed with a number of them for salvation. They received salvation. I prayed for them for the baptism of the Holy Spirit. They start speaking in tongues. You know, I've had opportunities to watch their growth over the last 15 years, too, which has been awesome. There's one cop that instantly comes to mind. He's one of your South Dakota cops, and in a different part of the state. But I remember after leading him to the Lord, watching what God did in his marriage, watching what God did in his own personal life, and get him rooted in a good church, get him rooted in the Word. You know, now almost everything he posts on Facebook is a Christian thing that he posts on Facebook. You know, and it's like, wow. You know, so I look around, I see the fruit of my labor. I see the people who have been born again, and I've been blessed to be a part of their lives. And so that's just an awesome thing in itself. But this morning I'm going to go to Luke chapter 10 because I'm reading about the Good Samaritan, and it's one of those stories I've read a million times. You know, probably technically not a million, but many, many times. And it just came to light so much more, especially after becoming an EMT. But chapter 10 of Luke, starting verse 25, It says, and behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tested him, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said to him, What is written in the law? What is your reading of it? So he answered and said, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, You have answered rightly. Do this and you will live. But he, wanting to justify himself, said to Jesus, And who is my neighbor? Then Jesus answered and said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise the Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, poured on oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. On the next day when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again I will repay you. So which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And he said to him, He who showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said to him, Go and do likewise. You know, especially verse 34. When I read 34, so he went in and bandaged his wounds, poured on oil and wine, and set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn and took care of him. You know, it just reminded me so much of all the different calls I've been on as an EMT. You know, you go to someone that's, you know, in dire straits, you know, whether it's medical or trauma related, and at the most fearful time in their life, and going through that circumstance, and there you are to bring compassion. There you are to bandage them up, take them someplace where they're going to recover, you know, and you know, it's just like, wow, kind of shed out a new light for me. Because going back to becoming an EMT, it was right before spring break outreach this year. The EMT administrator came to me and says, Hey Bob, you're on the fire department. Have you ever considered becoming EMT? And at that point, I can honestly say no. You know, I was like, no, I never really have, you know, but I told the person, I said, let me pray about it. I'm going to talk to Corey tonight. We'll pray about it, discuss it. I'll let you know tomorrow. So I did. And Corey is amazing. I was kind of hoping she'd say, don't you have enough going on? You know, and then I would have been a good excuse. Yeah, my wife and I aren't in agreement, so I don't have to do this, you know, kind of deal. But, you know, I just know the nudging of God. And when I shared it with Corey, she's like, I think you should do it. And she's all excited. We've been married almost 25 years. We never once talked about either of us becoming an EMT, you know. So this kind of came out of the blue. So after I knew she was in agreement, I told the administrator, or asked the administrator, so when do the classes start? And they said March 17th. Well, I knew I was coming back from spring break March 16th. I'm thinking, man, I got one huge big busy outreach, and I'm going to jump right out of that outreach right into classes. And anyone that's an EMT in the United States or Canada, we all study on this in book, 41 chapters long, over 1,600 pages in length. You know, we got 41 quizzes and 3 trimester exams, and then a comprehensive exam to prepare you for your national exam. Plus, you have to master skills. I think the National Registry requires 17 or 18, 19 skills, but then our state of Texas requires about 7 or 8 skills, and then our medical director requires us to learn even more skills than that. So all this stuff that I had to learn, test out on, and pass and everything else, you know, I passed a class with a 94+% GPA, and it's just like, man, in college, you know, I went through college to get a business degree. I got an BBA in marketing. I went through college drunk and blown off my classes, and, you know, no big deal. But I'll tell you what, going through this coursework to become an EMT was tough, because I never took courses back in college that ended in ology, you know, cardiology and all these other classes. So medical, I had no medical background, you know, so for me to have to learn all this stuff was crazy. There'd be some days I spent 15 hours studying, and Corey, I mean, I praise God I got a cheerleading wife who just, hey, anything you need? Are you ready for supper? Whatever. And I just study and study and study and study. And I'm not a fast reader. I have to go through slowly, highlight, underline, different colors, arrows pointing to things, go through it again before every quiz, go through it again before the exams. It's just like, it doesn't come by osmosis, it takes study. And so, but I applied myself, I did well, and received the fruit of it. But the biggest thing is, being down where I live, is that our EMS service and our fire department, our PSA, our primary service area, covers parts of 4 counties. We are in the northeast corner of a county called Uvalde County, but there's other 3 counties that come together pretty close to us. That's Medina County, Bandera County, and Riel County. And so every time I go on a call, there's different sheriff's deputies, different highway troopers, park police. We have 2 state parks in our service area. One's Garner State Park, which does more business than all the other state parks in Texas combined. It has since 1941. It's the most beautiful park in the mountains with the rivers running through it, and it's just gorgeous. And hiking trails, and people just come for the water activities and camping and everything else. But because it's such a busy park, we're always being called there, people diving into water wrong, back injuries, neck injuries, broken legs, other things that happen. And because of all the traffic in the area, right outside the Garner Park is a U.S. Highway, U.S. Highway 83. Same 83 that goes through Myrtle, South Dakota, right in the middle of your state. That U.S. Highway goes from Canada down to Mexico. It goes right past where I live. And there's U.S. Highway 90 to intersect in our county. So we have a lot of tourism, a lot of people all the time. In fact, it's crazy. I don't even bring my phone in, like in the service, because I haven't figured out how, when I mute my phone, to have e-dispatch not go off. And e-dispatch is, on my phone tells me when I get calls, when our companies are being toned out. And so, but I've been on so many calls, and time won't allow for it, but one was a mass casualty incident where it was a semi-truck in the posted highway speed limit of 60, wound up T-boning a van with 7 people in it that just pulled out from a stop. It was not a good result. We saved 3 people out of it. The other 4 were deceased. And, you work those kind of calls, and they're not easy calls. In fact, as an EMT student, one of the first calls I went on, I worked with 4 different EMS services, and with one of them, one of the first calls I went on was for a 17-year-old unresponsive child who grandfather was doing CPR on him until we got there. And then, of course, we had to intubate, start bagging, chest compressions continue. 29 interventions we did on this 17-year-old boy, never brought him back. But those are tough calls. And if there was a time to quit, it would have been after that call. And I was having a heart-to-heart with the Lord after all was said and done with that. And my heart was just breaking for the family. It really was. And had to go spend a little alone time after the call and in the ambulance. But we were on scene for 4 hours. You got to wait for the death certificate to be signed. You got to wait for the funeral home to show up, all everything else. And the Lord reminded me of an incident that happened 13 years ago when a good friend of mine, one of my best friends, his son died in a freak skateboard accident. Skateboarding just down the street with 2 of his friends and fell off his skateboard, damaged the back of his brainstem, and we put him on life support right away. And I drove over 500 miles to get to where he was in the hospital. And when I got there 8 hours later, putting everybody out with the parents, and I just prayed over this boy, expecting him to just rise up out of the bed. Because my Bible tells me that raise the dead. I'm supposed to do that as part of our command in the Great Commission. But I didn't see the dead raised that day. And I said, Lord, why? You sent me so far to pray over this boy. I really expected him to get up. And the Lord spoke to me real clearly these words: if you want to see the dead raised, keep laying hands on the dead. Okay, that brought me solace. Okay, I did my part, so up to God to do the rest, God reminded me of that 13 years later as I was doing chest compressions, or after I got done doing chest compressions and bagging, on a 17-year-old boy that didn't make it. And it's like, Lord, I was asking him why again, and he reminded me of that. And then the thought that kept coming to me as I was driving home after that shift was, if not me, who? If not me, who? And that just reminded me, here I am, Lord, send me. I'm qualified, you've equipped me, I'm healthy, I can go and do, I can serve where I'm needed. And serving those around us is what God's called each of us to do. And it doesn't matter what age you are. If God's leading you to do something, do it. It's so easy to say, well, I'm past my time on that, Lord, and if I would have done that, it would have been 30 years ago, Lord. But no, I got a lot of victories as well. Christmas Day, we get toned out as on the call with the fire department that day, and we get toned out for, I think that boy was 17 as well, a 17-year-old boy. Never did think about that, piecing that together, the ages though. Rode over a four-wheeler and possible back injury. And so I show up on scene, air medics were called. Our closest trauma hospital to Utopia is 85 miles away in San Antonio. We have 2 trauma ones in San Antonio, BAMC and University Hospital. And so anything that we know suspect is going to be trauma, we just right away call for air medics. So we get there before the air medics show up. We'll set up the landing zone. I run over to help the EMTs, and they're like, Bob, can you go get our backboard? Absolutely, we're going to do that. And come back, and then after stabilizing him, they wanted because one paramedic had manual stabilization of the spine of this young man. And so after we got him stabilized, we log rolled him on, stabilized him to the longboard, put him on the stretcher, put him in the ambulance. A few minutes later, air medics show up. Parents show up, come to find out that the mom works with my wife, and she's like, Bob, will you pray over our son? I said, absolutely. So I stopped everybody as they're pulling him out of the ambulance, and I just laid hands on him. I made a declaration that there'd be nothing broken, nothing missing, that he would be fine, anyway, let the aeromatics take him, actually helped load him up, and they take off. Then I went back to the parents, and I prayed for them again. And it says, listen, I know it's going to take you an hour and a half to get to the hospital at a minimum. Do not break land speed records. He's in good hands. I'm just praying for you that you will drive safely, be at peace. We've already petitioned God. There's nothing else you can do. God's got it, and he's in good hands. So that night, the mom calls Corey and says, hey, I just want to give you an update. Our son is doing wonderful. After x-rays and MRIs, there's nothing broken, nothing missing, kind of deal. And they just say he's got a concussion. We'll keep him overnight for observation. He was released the next day. A couple of weeks later, they walk into our church, and the mom's right away telling their son, hey, this is the man that prayed over you. So that was cool. I'll give you one more story because of time's sake. We were on a call for search and rescue up at our other state park, Lost Maples, which has really high elevations, and so there's a lot of hiking trails, you go miles up and down, and there's we get a lot of tourism. And so we had a family that was off trail, hit the top of a hill. The dad dials 911, goes to Bandera Dispatch. He's got one bar, coming and going kind of deal, and says they don't know where they're at. So right away, EMTs are heading up there. We caught aeromedics. We're on our way up there as well. Because we come to find out, and it's a 100-degree day. I think it's 102 that day. The family's got no fluids with them, so we're thinking dehydration. Find out they got a 6-month-old baby girl with them. So that small body, you're thinking it's going to be dehydrated quick. So he's like, let's get going. So I'm the first one at the station, rescue one out on the apron, wait for 2 other of my firemen to show up. We start rolling. As we're rolling in route, about halfway there, I says, now we're going to pray for that family, especially that little girl. Let's pray right now. And so I started praying. As soon as I got done praying, 20 seconds later, the EMTs just arrived on scene. They says, we've got the family in the visitors parking lot. They're fine. Call off aeromedic, call off search and rescue. So I found a place to turn around and head back to the station. And one of my firemen, fire lady, actually, I asked her, I says, can I ask you a personal question? She said, sure. I says, are you born again? Have you been saved? Now, my co-pilot, I knew he was because I've already had to talk with him. And so, come to find out that this person I worked with was not saved yet. So, well, before we even roll back into the station, you can be born again. How about we just take care of that right now? So I led her through the sinner's prayer. She can't wait to call her husband after we got back, it's just awesome, and then find out that her and her husband don't work on Sundays and invited them to church, so, and then had to leave for this, because that was just a couple weeks ago. So, that is another reason, if I'm discipling and ministering to my first responders down there, I don't want to be gone 2 months at a time for outreaches, so, And that's what's happened this last year, and still waiting for NASA to call. So those of you in here, if God is speaking to your heart that you know He's called you to do something else, and you think, but I've never been trained in that area, it's nothing I've ever thought about, Lord, send somebody else, kind of deal. Or never given it serious thought, but you know God's been tugging at you to do it, and it may sound even crazy to even do it at your age or whatever. I'm going to tell you right now, that's the Holy Spirit trying to get your attention. He sent me here today to be your burning bush to speak to you. He wants you to go and do what He's called you to do. And it will include ministering to those that He places in front of you. Don't worry about the details. He's got all those details worked out. And He'll give you the grace to go through anything. If you need training and schooling or whatever, just do it. I've got a dear, precious friend whose wife went back to school to finish up her college degree when she was in her 40s, and then at age 50, she decided to go to law school because she felt that's what God was telling her to do after the kids were grown and out of the house. And now this month, she's going into her third year of law school in Lincoln, Nebraska. And she's one that I said, you're my hero. Because, I knew all that before God called me to do the fire department and EMT stuff. It's like, you know what? I'm not too old to go do this. But if I'm speaking to you, this message is speaking to you, I want you to stand up because I want to be able to pray for you right where you're at. You don't have to come forward. I just feel led to have you stand up. That be your step of faith. That, yes, you want to just go fulfill the plan that God has for you. You know He's got something different than what you're doing now, or in addition to what you're doing now. So if that's you, stand up right where you're at and we pray for you. Stand up, please. Well, if it's more comfortable for you to sit down, I know where you're at. That would be perfectly fine, yes. Yes. Anyone else before I start praying? In the name of Jesus, I thank you for the ones that have stood up or have an open heart that's standing before you, Lord, that just want to do what you have yet for them to do, Lord. You have a plan and purpose. You told us in Jeremiah 29, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to give you a future and a hope. Lord, you have the plan. And Lord, it doesn't matter what we've been through, doesn't matter where we've been or where we think we're going. We know that you have the plan. So, Father, I thank you that your word tells us in Proverbs that man plans his ways, but God directs his steps. So I just declare you're going to direct their steps into everything you have for them, that they will fulfill the plan and purpose that you have called them to do. And bring forth plenty of confirmations for them, Lord, so as they walk, Lord, they'll know that they're hearing you. They won't stray to the right or to the left, but they do fulfill what you have for them. In Jesus' name, amen.